Hey folks, and welcome to another video of A Plain Truth. Here we see the FCC chairman, I think he's out now, saying we have 200,000 cell towers in the US, but they're planning on millions of small cell sites in the 5G future. We're seeing these going up all around the world, massively being installed here in Santa Rosa, California, Petaluma, also chronicled Long Beach, up in Vancouver, and they're going to be able to put them on anybody's homes, anywhere they want. They're steamrolling municipalities. They're trying to sell this as good, but they say they're going to need 300,000 small cells in the pizza box. I think this is in the U.S. They're going to be on light poles. But here I wanted to talk about how much this is going to cause us as far as radiation. Here you see the 5G is 65,000 times more output than 4G. This is what they're selling, and they're going in homes everywhere, right across people's homes, and they don't care. This is on the corner down the road from me, across from the yoga studio. They're putting them in everywhere. The municipalities are powerless to stop them, so it must be the people waking up, and most of the people saying they're ugly, but they don't understand the real meaning behind it, which we're going to get in. So this is the Internet of Things. It's going to be radiating from everywhere. You're not going to want to be in a near city. You're not going to want to be or near a suburb, and it's going to be slow broiling us. These things have so much radiation they can boil us. We are basically water beings. It can heat us up and fry us. And they're opening up a huge electronic magnetic spectrum as well in millimeters, really, really tiny microwaves. So we went from the 1G, 2G, 4G, but the 5G is so much more. They make it sound like it's just the next step. No, it's 2,000% more radiation than the previous 4G. It's going to give everybody cancer, but more than that, it's ultimate control of us, as we'll get into in a little bit, and everything's connected to the Internet of Things. And here you see how the build-out is going towards the acclaimed 5G in 2020, but it's already being installed in many areas around the world today. And it's all about Big Brother control, cyborging, transhumanism. And as I said, the only way to stop the madness is for people to rise up. Here's some flyers they made to stop it from passing in California, but that didn't make any difference. We have to stop them from installing them right now. For if we don't, once they get the antennas up, they can add anything that they want. These are going to be 50 to 100 feet to 300 feet from everybody's homes. They're putting in millions of them with hundreds of tiny small cells in each box. It's going to be radiation central. And we'll get into the bad health effects, the ill health effects, cancer-causing ill health effects, brain-changing frequencies as well, that are all part of this scheme, including the Internet of Things to run and control all.
Well done, Firebird 2. You're now under automatic control. Hands-off steering.
Here we go on the high-speed safety lane. Ah, this is the life. Safe, cool, comfortable. Mind if I smoke a cigar?
Oh, not with this wonderful air conditioning.
Hey, you want some ice cream or a cool drink?
Orange juice, please.
Oh, me too. I'm gonna go for the ice cream. Thank you, dear.
Hey, there's a Firebird 1. You ready?
So there's many plans for the 4G LTE 5G build out because they're going to have so much power, so many bandwidths. So here's an application, January 18th, 2018, Ford Global Technologies. Self-policing cars, autonomous police cars, writing you tickets, giving you no chance. Whenever they want, they'll just give you a ticket. You'll probably get it in the mail, but here's the patent showing all the autonomous vehicles and the software programs that are going to be used. And as you can see here, the driverless cars, cop cars being shown in movies and whatnot, they're well on their way to developing autonomous police cars that'll be controlled by others, and you'll have to go to the court system in order to fight it, and you'll never get to talk to a cop, which may be a good thing, but it's going to be Big Brother watching you automated wirelessly from a control room, just like they'll be driving you autonomously from a control room, and you'll never see the people. You'll never know who they are, but people are going to get in these automated cars and not think twice about it. All right, so there's a lot more going on as well, and here's an article I want to bring your attention to. This is a Business Insider article. This is from Business Insider, April 2nd, 2017, talking about if we're all cyborgs by 2027. And here's Elon Musk and Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon. They're all in it together, what they think is going to be the end of the smartphone. What happens after the end of smartphone, folks? So the next thing said to be shipping with upgrades along with the Sirius. So this is the home invasion eavesdropping devices that everybody's sucking up and putting into their homes. But here's what they have planned for the future. Microsoft's Alex Kipman recently told Business Insider that augmented reality could flat out replace the smartphone, the TV, and anything else with a screen. There's not much use for a separate device sitting in your pocket or in your entertainment center if all your calls, chats, movies, and games are beamed into your eyes and overlaid on the world around you. Beamed into your eyes. At the same time, gadgetry like Amazon Echo, Apple's own AirPods become more and more important. AI systems like Siri, Alexa, Bixby, Cortana get smarter. They will rise not just in talking to computers, but having them talk back, also arresting you. In other words, computers will hijack your senses more so than they already do with your sight and your hearing, intermediated by technology. It's a little scary, you think. Think of what Facebook glitches could mean in the world where it doesn't just control what you read on your phone, but in what you see in the world around you. The promise, though, is a world where life and technology blend seamlessly. The major tech companies promise that this future means a world of fewer technological distractions and a physical and digital world to become the same thing. You decide how to feel about that. So this week we got our first look at Neuralink, a new company founded by Elon Musk. The guy is busier than a one-armed paper hanger, with a goal of building computers into our brains by way of a neural lace, a very early stage technology that lays on your brain and bridges it to a computer. Can you say cyborg? Transhumanism. It's the next step beyond even the blending of digital and physical worlds as human and machine become one. Yeah, let's all vote for that. Assuming the science works, and a lot of smart people believe that it will, this is the logical endpoint of the road that smartphones started us on. If smartphones gave us access to information and augmented reality puts the information in front of us when we need it, then putting neural lace in our brains just closes the gap. Hey, isn't this great? And here's scumbag Ray Kurzweil promoting the transhumanist agenda. And you can see it all here. So just last week, we had these guys come up. You know, I remember when Google came up with their Google Glass and tried to launch it a few years ago. Notice the numbers on the screen, 639. Also look over here. These are all the components are that they're going into, which we'll get into in a minute. So they're calling it the new Vaunt smart glasses. You see a stream of information on what looks like a screen, but it's actually being projected onto your retina. Remember what we said about the future. It's going directly inside your brain. The prototypes I wore in December also felt virtually indistinguishable from regular glasses. And then instead, Google came out with the Google Glass. But the story, real quick story, is they rolled it out about 5 years ago, Google Glass, with a big announcement at the Waldorf Astoria in San Francisco. They had like 1,500 Googleites they gave glasses to early, and they all had a big party, and we're all celebrating how cool they were. And there was a bunch of promo for 10 months before about Google Glass. And then these people, some of them went out to a club, I think it was the Washington Street Bar and Grill, and they started filming people, and the red light came on, and people started calling them glass holes. And it stuck. Get out of here, glass holes. That is why Google ended their entire campaign, because people started calling them glass holes, and they know that marketing, they couldn't escape it. So the future, HoloLens is aiming for a full high-end AR experience that literally puts a window PC on your head, no, in your head. magically puts an entire computer on your hip, plus its headset as a set of goggles that look like they belong in a Vin Diesel movie. We live in a world where our watches have LTE and our phones can turn our faces into bouncing cartoon characters. You'd expect a successful pair of smart glasses to provide similar wonders. Every gadget these days has more, and more. This is why all electronics in Vault sit inside two little modules built into the stems of the eyeglasses. More importantly, though, the electronics are located entirely up near the face of the frame, so the rest of the stems and even the frame itself can flex a little. Yeah, folks, you know where they're going? They're going into our temple. This is the whole idea, is to put them right next to the temple of the brain. Temple is your holiness. Why is it called the temporal lobe? Because it's the primary auditory perception, what we hear, such as hearing, and holds the primary auditory cortex. The auditory cortex receives sensory information from the ears, and secondary areas process the information into meaningful units such as speech and words. They're going to take over our brains, our thinking, our speaking, and our hearing. And they're going through the temporal lobe brain. Remember, we're frequency, we're energy and vibration. Nikola Tesla. This is their plan. This is what the 5G rollout is partly all about. So as we've said before, this 5G technology is being rolled out everywhere. 4G LTE, 5G using Canada is doing it, Australia is doing it, Europe saying they're far behind. Trump might enable 5G to go everywhere. So this is about total control. But let's get into the health. I've already covered some of it, but this is from a website, Electrosensitivity. Remember, we're electromagnetic beings, we're frequencies, so they control our frequencies, control humanity. The 5G transmitters allowed by the FCC used phased array and directed energy, given an effective radiated power of up to 30,000 watts per 100 megahertz of spectrum. Telecompanies can buy up to 3 gigahertz of contiguous spectrum and then emit up to 900,000 watts. Think of your light bulb at 50 watts. These 5Gs and their re-radiated quasi-static Brillion precursors radiate far into the human body, causing severe adverse health effects. The group velocity approximation assumes that the carrier wave dominates when radiation enters lossy material like water in human tissue. In fact, it can become the dominant factor on cell membranes. Using asymptomatic mathematical analysis at 50 centimeters deep in human brain tissue is 78 times stronger than under group velocity approximation theory. So the signal can be reflected inside the skull and has been associated with brain tumors, along with a rise in breast cancer incidence recorded over near phased array radar stations. These results raise severe health and safety issues that the U.S. Air Force is unable or unwilling to address at this time. The deployment of 5G radiation could herald the end of city and downtown life as we know it. Kind of important to know this stuff. So another thing on these cell phones, the future of small cells with remote radio heads. They got a concept known as front haul and back haul. This is basically meaning they have to use fiber optic cables to run the systems via fiber optics to the baseband units located in central locations. That's why you're seeing these massive black wires on these telephone poles as well. Again, being tested in Vermont. You can see all the places that are doing it. But I want to get back to this site. I mean, here's a picture of these beasts, folks. This is from Scientists for Wired Technology. This is a schoolyard taken from the cell tower. There it is, just projecting directed energy radiation. Notice that the utility works. They did not get any notification as required by the state or by the county regarding the installations. And here's the installations right outside a house emitting massive radiated energy that will cause cancer, get everybody sick, and then eventually kill you, but also will control you, can look inside your homes, will heat up you like water boiling. It's all here. This is what they're doing to us, folks. Look at these things they're putting in everywhere. We have to be the ones to stop it. All right, so this is again from the Scientists for Wired. I don't know if I've covered some of this, but so the new video proves there's no, they claimed in Santa Rosa here that there was a significant gap in cell coverage, so this is why they had to do it. Bullshit. There's no significant gap in cellular coverage as proven here. Verizon said they have antennas of 75 city lights going in by 2020. But here in the installations, they have antennas of 72 poles, 42 PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, and 30 Santa Rosa Light Powers. The project's to total one or more antennas of 180 poles, 105 utility poles, and 75 light poles by 2020. AT&T and Sprint follow suit. That's 720 additional towers. They're going to have to be, like we said, every 300 feet. Everywhere. Every one in 5 to 10 neighbors is going to have one of these right in front of their home, giving them cancer and controlling them. The projection of 720 additional towers in Santa Rosa, consistent with testimony given on June 28th in the California Assembly local government hearings. There's going to be 1,000 to 3,000 5G small cells. Now remember, every one of these is boxed in with 100 cells per box. According to Dr. Google, is 4.75 miles. One small cell for every 10,000 square feet. 4G, 5G, the small cell tower in residential areas. The data shows only 41 of the so-called cell phone towers in Santa Rosa, mainly installed in residential zones, only 15 to 50 feet from the homes. Our children, folks, our children. Here's a map of the installs just going in already. We've already had some pictures on here. Now, just understand, when the municipalities get this stuff, they're being asked to have knowledge about what is going down, how it's going on. But the Verizon and the other cell companies, they don't need to tell them anything. They're just putting them in because they own the city councils. They own the state. They own the federal. The corporations own it all. So remember, it's Google and Intel and the biggest players in the world that are doing this. So you think any city municipality is going to stop these people? No, it's up to us. So one, there's no planning documents on a design review for these cell towers. None. No RF microwave radiation exposure analysis. No antenna specs. No maximum power output specifications. No alternative site analysis, and don't even show the size of the ancillary equipment backup battery boxes on the ground. The Santa Rosa Municipal Code regulates the placement, construction, and modification. They're supposed to have a design review, yet there's no design review analysis because RF microwave radiation exposure and alternate location analysis in public hearings, they don't have them. And unfortunately, the two documents are contradictory between, hey, we got to test this stuff, and hey, it's not in our power to do it. This is how they work. What public process, if any, was followed for the design review? There's no public process. What is the maximum input power of the microwave transmitters? No answer. Is there any regulation of maximum input power of these cell phone towers? None. How many transmitting antennas in each microwave transmitter box? Still waiting for answers. Goes on and on. Verizon chooses to change the number of type of antennas, which would necessarily change the maximum output. Once they get these poles in, folks, they can upgrade them as much as they want. They can't be stopped. They're not even being stopped putting them in now. So how far from each microwave transmitter on each cell phone does the RF radiation travel? From each cell phone tower, what is the maximum level peak, not average, RF microwave at 5 feet, 10 feet, 100 feet? There's no studies, folks. And when they measure, they just measure the average. So it's a pulsing system. So when it pulses, it has a peak and it has a zero. So they take the average, but they don't measure the peak. They also don't measure the amount of time you're sitting under the thing, only at the moment in time. And say, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Santa Rosa residents were never notified about the installation of these towers, which was the intention of the February 14th Valentine's Day change in City Council, even though the changes violate municipal coding. All right? So this is all, again, from Scientists for Wired Technology. I'll put in the show notes. Again, the exposure rates, 15,000 to 50,000 microwaves per milliliter squared, or millimeter squared, milliliter squared of RF microwave radiation is sufficient to cause cardiac problems, neurological and psychological symptoms, altered blood cell counts, increased chromosome aberrations, and elevated cancer in children and adults. So why are U.S. cities allowing almost 750,000 to 1.25 million microwaves per milliliter squared of RF radiation exposure on sidewalks, 15 to 50 feet from our homes? Microwave radiation covertly attacked the staff or U.S. Embassy in Moscow. This is the Woodpecker Project, it was called. The ongoing radiation affected 1,800 employees and 3,000 dependents. Cardiac problems existed, neurological damage. Now remember, this was back, I believe, in the late 1950s, folks. And here they had the studies of this, and they showed that this exposure caused relatively high proportion of cancer deaths among employees in the 1978 epidemiological study of Americans stationed at the U.S. Embassy. So the claim is the Russians gave them cancer using RF frequencies. So some RF cancer effects, they're ambivalent about the findings. Like I said, they don't test for peak, they don't test for duration, they only test for average. So then they come out and they say, oh, it's fine. And then you have these things from the National Telecom Group that the guy taking over the operations, Berridge, before that he worked for SmithKline Glaxo, a drug company. What do you think they're doing to us, folks? Frank Collins, the director of National Institute of Health, said he has no confidence in the RF study. On and on it goes. 1984, the U.S. Air Force showed the rats exposed to microwaves got cancer. Took 8 years for those results to appear in a journal, then forgotten. Again, the major players, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, the high-tech darlings of Wall Street, each has a capitalization approaching $1 trillion. They run a massive lobbying operation in Washington and keep a low profile on radio frequency. The Waymo, the driverless cars, that's Google. All right? So you got Uber in the front, but you got all these guys, Microsoft, Google, and Apple, changing the names so you don't know who they are. All right? And that's how it goes. So again, this 15,000 to 50,000 exposure, but they're bumping it up from 15 to 50 to 720 to 1,230, 15 to 50 feet from all our homes. And there is nothing you can do to stop it unless you get active in your communities, unless you get a hold of the maps that are being produced and show that where these things are being put in and stop them from doing this. I went down to the installation down the street, talked to the guys installing. First thing they said to me was, do you have a cell phone? Well, this is just the same radiation as cell phones. I said, where's your information coming from? Verizon, who you work for? They looked at each other and said, well, yeah. Well, what do you think they're going to tell you? And these guys were saying, I'm telling them how much radiation's coming out of these, talking in micromilliliters, talking their language. And they're, well, it's not turned on yet. But look at these things, folks. They're going in everywhere, around our schools, around our children. Our children have no chance unless we begin to speak out. All right, so what Scientists for Wired Technology, I actually really love this site. It has some really great information. Here's some other ones right across the street from homes. If you don't speak out now, it's going to be too late. So stop the starts by recognizing the law con of the root of the 1996 Telecoms Act, passed in the last 20 years, forces down communities' throats too many unnecessary and redundant wireless that deprive many of our constitutional rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, safety, health, without reasonable government surveillance, intrusion into our homes, and forced exposures to a non-toxic agent. RF microwave radiation that has been proven to cause 2 forms of cancer, DNA damage, and other biological effects. And as I stated earlier, it's all about control of our brains, transhumanism, the beehive, the collective. So that's it I got for now. I hope everybody's waking up and can share this. Thanks for listening. Plain Truth. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace and love one another. Thank you.
Smartphones. 1G brought us the very first cell phones. 2G let us text for the first time. 3G brought us online, and 4G delivered the speeds that we enjoy today. But as more users come online, 4G networks have just about reached the limit of what they're capable of at a time when users want even more data for their smartphones and devices. Now we're headed toward 5G, the next generation of wireless. It will be able to handle 1,000 times more traffic than today's networks, and it'll be up to 10 times faster than 4G LTE. Just imagine downloading an HD movie in under a second, and then let your imagination run wild. 5G will be the foundation for virtual reality, autonomous driving, the Internet of Things, and stuff we can't even yet imagine. But what exactly is a 5G network? The truth is, experts can't tell us what 5G actually is, because they don't even know yet. But right now there are 5 brand new technologies emerging as the foundation of 5G. Millimeter waves, small cells, massive MIMO, beamforming, and full duplex. First up, technology number 1, millimeter waves. Your smartphone and other electronic devices in your home use very specific frequencies on the radio frequency spectrum, typically those under 6 gigahertz. But these frequencies are starting to get more crowded. Carriers can only squeeze so many bits of data on the same amount of radio frequency spectrum. As more devices come online, we're going to start to see slower service and more dropped connections. The solution is to open up some new real estate. So researchers are experimenting with broadcasting on shorter millimeter waves, those that fall between 30 and 300 gigahertz. This section of spectrum has never been used before for mobile devices, and opening it up means more bandwidth for everyone. But there is a catch. Millimeter waves can't travel well through buildings or other obstacles, and they tend to be absorbed by plants and rain. To get around this problem, we'll need technology number 2, small cell networks. Today's wireless networks rely on large, high-powered cell towers to broadcast their signals over long distances. But remember, higher frequency millimeter waves have a harder time traveling through obstacles, which means if you move behind one, you lose your signal. Small cell networks would solve that problem, using thousands of low-power mini base stations. These base stations would be much closer together than traditional towers, forming a sort of relay team to transmit signals around obstacles. This would be especially useful in cities. As the user moved behind an obstacle, his smartphone would automatically switch to a new base station in better range of his device, allowing him to keep his connection. Next up, technology number 3, massive MIMO. MIMO stands for multiple input, multiple output. Today's 4G base stations have about a dozen ports for antennas that handle all cellular traffic. But massive MIMO base stations can support about 100 ports. This could increase the capacity of today's networks by a factor of 22 or more. Of course, massive MIMO comes with its own complications. Today's cellular antennas broadcast information in every direction at once, and all of those crossing signals could cause serious interference. Which brings us to technology number 4, beamforming. Beamforming is like a traffic signaling system for cellular signals. Instead of broadcasting in every direction, it would allow a base station to send a focused stream of data to a specific user. This precision prevents interference, and it's way more efficient. That means stations could handle more incoming and outgoing data streams at once. Here's how it works. Say you're in a cluster of buildings and you're trying to make a phone call. Your signal is ricocheting off of surrounding buildings and crisscrossing with other signals from users in the area. A massive MIMO base station receives all of these signals and keeps track of the timing and the direction of their arrival. It then uses signal processing algorithms to triangulate exactly where each signal is coming from and plots the best transmission route back through the air to each phone. Sometimes it'll even bounce individual packets of data in different directions, off of buildings or other objects to keep signals from interfering with each other. The result is a coherent data stream sent only to you. Which brings us to technology number 5, full duplex. If you've ever used a walkie-talkie, you know that in order to communicate, you have to take turns talking and listening. That's kind of a drag. Today's cellular base stations have that exact same holdup. A basic antenna can only do one job at a time, either transmit or receive. This is because of a principle called reciprocity, which is the tendency for radio waves to travel both forward and backward along the same frequency. To understand this, it helps to think of a wave like a train loaded up with data. The frequency it's traveling on is like the train track. And if there's a second train trying to go in the opposite direction on the same track,
where do you suggest that we relax for the night? Okay, Firebird, I'll put you on the beat. The sunset in's a honey, and the hostess is a dream.
Good evening, my living at its best.
Tower man, take us that way. Roger, Firebird, I'll swing you to the right. Hands on steering, Firebird, good night.
Bed and a pre-digested food is cooked by infrared.
Okay, okay, we like what you say. Mr. Tower Man, take us that way.